Hello and welcome to the Engineering Futures podcast. I'm your host, Paul Barker, and I'll be helping you explore the world of manufacturing by introducing you to successful people from across the sector. We'll touch on everything from personal experiences and professional challenges to contemporary issues affecting the sector, careers advice, and practical steps for employers who are looking to attract the top engineering talent. Join us as we get to know the people who have made a difference within the sector. Okay, so welcome to a new episode of the Engineering Futures podcast with our special guest, Mr. Chris Platt. How are we getting on, Platter?
Very good, Mr. Barker. Thank you.
Okay, so today's chat is going to be centered around the work. Well, your story, Chris, in terms of your journey from kind of the initial thoughts of being an engineer to getting you where you are today. I suppose the thing that will differ to the other shows that I've done is that you worked in education and spent a lot of years in education, which is something that we both have in common. We work together as well. So it'd be good to we'll go down that path and find out a little bit more about some of the challenges that the sector faces and what needs to be done to encourage more people into it. But we'll just kind of kick off just by finding out a bit more about you and your journey. So I suppose the first question would be, what inspired you, or who inspired you to become an engineer?
Yeah, so I think it was probably not the usual route where people tend to, when I speak to engineers, they tend to think, oh, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go and work on planes or whatever it is. But I was working in a bar, a bit lost really. And my dad said, right, get in your car. We're going to go and find you somewhere to work properly. So he drove me to a place and he said, go in there and ask him if you can do some work for him. I went in, started doing a bit of labouring and stuff like that. And then once I saw the guys, fabricating and making things, I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. So I kind of stumbled into it. And then, yeah, it was a bit of a slow start, really. And then when I started getting involved in education, things kind of took off for me. But yeah, I spent quite a few years in a few different companies, welder fabricator, fitting, lots of site work and stuff like that. So yeah, there's some stories, but it's I think that's one of the things we'll probably touch on, how different the professional environment, of education and the expectations are compared to engineering, especially when you're a young lad and working with lads on site and all the banter and pranks and stuff like that. That certainly disappears.
Definitely, and I suppose it's interesting that you did have a bit of a non-conventional route into the sector, if you will. So how old were you so what happened then when you said you were working in a bar? So what happened from leaving school to kind of being in that bar?
Yeah, so I had no idea what I wanted to do when I left school. I went to college, did A-levels, didn't do great. I mean, I got some grades, but I didn't really want to be there. So there were no real focus. I just picked some kind of random subject that sounded mildly interesting. So when I started learning my trade, and going to college to do welding fabrication, it did spark an interest there. I really like it. It's probably a bit old school now, but I really like the pattern development side of stuff. Sheet metal work, welding. It's they say welders are a strange breed. It is a bit of an art form sometimes, but it's very satisfying when you see when you made something from beginning to end and seeing it go off and be appreciated by other people. So yeah, and then it was, I got asked as a favour to pick up some evening classes at a college, teaching adults. So I was probably one of the youngest teachers going, because I think I was only about 22, 23 when I started. Um, Teaching 2 evenings, and then one evening doing my cert ed program to become qualified in that. So it was quite a tough couple of years, really. But pretty much as soon as I completed it, I managed to get a full time position, which it has its benefits. I mean, when you're working all them hours and you're racking up overtime and stuff, you kind of you do miss that. But I think I was definitely ready for a change. I didn't really like traveling and going to start work, but so yeah, that I came in as a full time lecturer quite early on, really, and then it went from there.
Okay, so just kind of like going back a bit then, in terms of your entry into the engineering sector, if you will. I think that you had no skills or experience within engineering, but someone gave you a chance and they took you on. And I think that is getting more and more difficult now. I think that, you know, if you want to get a job as an engineer, it can be very hard, coming from, if you've done an engineering course, a full-time course at college, and then transitioning over maybe a bit easy. But what do you think would be the challenges for kind of a young person now? Going back to thinking of your situation, do you think that's a route that would be difficult? Do you think you got lucky to be able to land a job?
Yeah, I think times have changed, haven't they? And especially with after the pandemic and things like that, but things just seem to work a lot differently now. I think the expectations for people to be coming into roles with this wide range of different engineering skills is it's a little bit out there, really. I mean, even if you've been on a full-time engineering program at college for 2 or 3 years, to get the skills that industry want off the bat is very difficult. I think employers need to just kind of understand that, training someone at that age, you've got to give them a really wide appreciation of what engineering is all about. It's a bit of a jack of all trades, really, master of none. You might get some programs that are more focused, but the way the curriculum's set up means they need to understand. I mean, take your typical level 3 at the moment, you're doing 17, 18 units of study in all different areas of engineering. 80% of that is probably not got practical elements in it. So to expect someone to come out of that with the skills to hit the ground running, it's not really, the system's not set up for that.
Yeah, and there's so many. I'm not saying there's snobbery within the sector, but there's definite I think people expect too much of. If you're looking for your first job as an engineer, sometimes employers' expectations of what this person is capable of that's come from education is unrealistic. But equally, it's not that young person's fault. If they've not had that development put into them, if they've not got those practical skills, that's not their fault. Do you know what I mean? And I think sometimes they've played the game, they've done the hard bit, they've worked hard at school, at college, at university, but then they come to the end of that and there's nowhere for them to go.
No, and I think, I mean, this current generation now, where they did spend, best part of 2 academic years at home, that's a real shock to suddenly find yourself in a workplace where, with the experienced people that have been, like I was saying, like working really long hours and being expected to chuck a weekend in there if a job needs doing and things like that, and they've just not been in that situation. So It's a different generation, yeah, there's a big expectation on there. The problem is the business is, the sector's so busy, it's so short on staffing that they can't, in a lot of cases, that mentor can't be freed up to bring that person up to the standard that they need to be. So I expect there's a lot of people starting roles and just not being able to give enough, and it's quite tricky. It's quite sad, really, thinking that people don't get that chance, because I mean, nobody's walking into the first job perfect and ready to go. You've got a lot to learn.
And I think as well, from our experience of working in education in East Lancashire, where there's a lot of deprived areas, and we used to see these young people in classes and think, do you know what? If someone just gives them a chance, they would be fine. They would be able to do it. But this person on their own probably wouldn't be able to find themselves a job. And the sad thing is, we used to see a lot of those students exit that door at the end of the year and just kind of like disappear into society, and I sometimes see them now where I'll go to Tesco's or whatever, and they're working, stacking shelves there, and you think, oh my God, how sad. You could have been an engineer, but no one had your back and no one helped you get there.
Yeah, and that I've seen quite a few. Yeah, and it's even worse when they've been off to university and done an aerospace program or a mechanical engineering program, and then they still happen to be working in a petrol station or an Asda or something like that, and you're thinking, oh, you're a good lad. Why has it not worked out for him? Yeah, there's so many people out there that are, like stuck in retail positions and things that they probably not really enjoying. Not to put the retail industry down, but it's probably not what they wanted to do. But they just can't get that first step in. So yeah, it is, and it happens a lot. I mean, when you've worked in education, you've taught classes of 20 odd, for like 10 years. You know a lot of people. So yeah, I do see that.
And it's I see it now with the kind of work I'm doing, and when I've engaged, especially with graduates. Like I said, these are the young people that we taught. They're the same kind of young people that have gone through that system, and I don't think employers know what to do with them. I think that apprenticeships work because they kind of understand that, and they understand that it's a school leaver that they're going to bring in. But I think that you take anyone that's slightly outside of that, they don't know what to do with them. They don't understand where a graduate would fit in their business. They think of a graduate as like someone who's going to be a high flyer and just needs to be in the office. And the reality is, they have a degree, but that doesn't mean that you can't start them in a kind of manual hands-on position and kind of let them build up the skills that way. And I think people sorry, go on.
Every apprentice out there's probably 10 people that have come out of a full-time course and still want to be in that position, but just haven't managed to, whether it's because they didn't interview well or the competition. There's a lot of people going for these positions. But yeah, there are people out there. Finding them that way is obviously quite tricky, but I suppose that's what you're trying to do now, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's tough and it is hard, and I think sometimes people's perceptions of what a young person is. I think they think of like someone on the phone all the time and huffing and puffing and rocking up late, and it's like, of course there are young people that are like that, but equally there's people in the 40s and 50s that are like that. But you wouldn't not give them a job. What do you think needs to change from a perceptions perspective of employers to be able? Because my belief is that people talk about skills crisis. I don't think there's a skills crisis. I just think that people don't know how to access the talent that's out there. They don't know what to do with them, and everyone's so focused on, well, have they got 3 years experience, can they come in and do this and do that? And it's a bit kind of short-sighted, I think. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things that it's like the, matching the perception and the expectation of what a young person thinks the industry is going to be difficult. I think because we have to teach that really broad range, and you see all these different environments, nuclear and aerospace, you're probably not going to be, you're going to be doing something quite a bit more specific than that. And it probably doesn't initially seem what they want, what that vision is, but it's getting on that. It's like buying your first house, it's getting on the ladder and working your way up and getting somewhere close to what your vision is and what you think you want to be doing. So I think it's showing them that route and that pathway and how they'll get there. I think is important, and and committing to some kind of plan for their training. And that'll retain staff. Then, when I went into education, I'd been put through a teacher training course. I never thought I'd get a degree. I weren't going to go to university and study engineering. But I got put through a degree in a different way, and that got some real commitment out of me. I was like, right, yeah, there's a plan here now. I can see in the next 3 years I'll be there, and then that's what I can do next. So I think, yeah, there's got to be something more than just, you start your first day and you're on that machine. It needs a bit of a wraparound, a bit of a package, and that's what people accept these days. Everything's commercial, everything's packed up in a way that you want, you can see what you're going to get out of it. So yeah, take the mystery away, I'd say. Show them where they can be in the next few years if they apply themselves.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think there's so little of that really goes on. You touched on there about development, about being able to see where you could be, and I think that's one thing that education is good at in terms of working in the education sector. That continuous development. There's the offer of being able to study for qualifications, and for me, it's just as simple as if you put someone on a HNC, it's going to take them 2 years to do it. So you've got them for 2 years, and then after that, a 1 year or 2 year HND top up, you've got them again for that time. Degree apprenticeships, and if people can see that. Yeah. I think it's when you speak to employers and they're like, especially smaller companies, and they'll say, well, we can't keep hold of our staff because we don't pay what they can earn elsewhere, and they'll go off to BAE because they can earn more. And it's like, the people that I speak to that are looking for jobs, the number one thing isn't necessarily earning more money. It's the fact that they didn't feel valued at their employer, the current employer. They felt like no one spoke to them about progression, no one spoke to them about development. It was at that point that they got pissed off, that they started looking, and then they realised they could earn more money. It wasn't, do you know what I mean? It wasn't, money was never the driver. It was the fact that they'd not been developed. And thing is as well, like we know from the time in education, if you stick someone on a degree apprenticeship, it costs peanuts to do it. And then you've got them for so long.
Yeah. I think it's like £3.5 billion worth of levy money went back to the Treasury in 2022. It's like, wow, that's £3.5 billion. That's enough to fill that's the skills gap solved. If that money was spent properly, wisely, I think there's a real lack of awareness around what can be done with it. I mean, degree apprenticeships, you're talking a levy payer, it's best part of £30,000, but it might retain that member of staff for the whole career. And if non-levy payers, it's just a small, I think it's a 5% contribution towards the apprenticeship. You can put someone through a degree and retain them in your company for £1,500. I can't believe that they haven't taken off the way that they should have. I mean that it does have it's linked to other issues, but the colleges and universities are competing against each other in that field. So it's, but yeah, I thought they would have been huge, but I don't see that much of it going on, to be honest.
No, me neither. And I think that you get pockets of it happening, tends to be in the bigger companies. But the danger is as well, and this is what I see now, is that because careers teams in education are so either non-existent or so stretched, it might be one person who works over an entire college or one person who does an entire school. And they've latched on to degree apprenticeships. So what I see now is a load of kind of like young people. All they're being told is, well, you can get a degree apprenticeship, and you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay to go to university. The employer does it for you. And I was speaking to someone from a local university the other week, and they said they get inundated with applications for degree apprenticeship, and these young people think they're courses, and they don't realise that you actually need to be employed.
Yeah.
But they're being set up to fail because they're being sold an idea of a degree apprenticeship, but there's no employers out there that are offering degree apprenticeships, especially as an entry level position.
Yeah.
And they should be, they absolutely should be, shouldn't they? So how do we get employers to see that value in taking on an 18, 19-year-old or older? Doesn't have to be a school leaver, but putting them on that program. What do you think needs doing to be able to give degree apprenticeships the boost that they need?
I think I think it's an awareness thing. I think there'll be tons of companies out there that just don't realise what the expectations are, what needs to be fulfilled to put someone through this, and how to go about it. I'm hoping that's the case anyway, because otherwise it seems like there's a really, I mean, it's not going to solve all the problems that we've got with the massive skills gap in this country, but there's a massive tool there to help. And I don't know. I think it's the way it's framed. I think a few issues that are currently out there could be solved or helped. With some kind of like national campaigning from the government, just awareness building. These are the options that are out there. These are potential solutions for your staffing problems. Because no disrespect to anyone in the industry, but they can be quite short sighted because they're busy. They're trying to make money. They're trying to run a business, trying to meet project deadlines, whatever it is. Thinking about young people that they haven't met yet and how they would progress through the business is probably not right at the forefront. They're probably not at the top of the priorities list. So yeah, I just think there needs to be more information out there, and it needs to be clear. But yeah, it's a tricky situation. I think it's a difficult one. It's a sad one, to be honest, because it's just so underutilized. I was down at Birmingham at the Advanced Manufacturing Conference the other week, and everyone, it seemed every stand I went to and everyone who came over to see us, it was the same conversations. What can we do about bringing these people through? And no one seems to have a clear answer. And what's happening now is salaries are spiraling in industry, are getting pretty crazy, especially when you compare it to education, and it creates a loop. It creates that vicious cycle where there aren't the teachers to get the standard of engineers up to where they need to be, because if you can come off a master's course and go straight into a role on £65,000, why would you even consider being a teacher on half that? Maybe less than half that. So it's all connected, and it's yeah. I I can't help thinking that it's education and informing people of what the options are. Like you say, careers advice. I can't remember having any careers advice at school or college. And I always felt like I'd stumbled into everything I did because I never had that direction. So yeah, I think that needs to be addressed as well.
Yeah, and it really is a tough one. I think when you talk about careers advice, I don't think anybody gets any proper careers advice, do they? And when I don't think it's advice you need, it's support. Do you know what I mean? You don't want anyone sat behind a desk telling you, well, you could do this, you could do that. It's like, well, help me do that. That's what people need. They need help. And I think that's my big takeaway with why I set up my business, because when I've personally tried to find a job, and it's like, well, what do you don't know what you can do you? You might have an idea of what you're capable of, but it's like education, and we'll get around to your journey into education. But for me, it happened by fluke. I had a family member, my cousin, who worked at Burnley College, and she told me one night about what a family do, and she told me about, have you ever considered teaching? And I was like, well, no, I've not. I didn't know I could do, and I'd love to do it. And she said, right, we'll come down to, they'll always have to people from industry, and and you get trained up on the job and all this, blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, I'm well interested in this, and this sounds absolutely amazing. But I would never have applied for. It wouldn't have been on my radar to look on a college website to see if there's a vacancy and apply. And I think that's the problem when you talk about careers support and guidance, especially for education. There's engineers out there that would teach. And I know there's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't, and salaries being one of them. But we both did it. We both went in and did that and took a lot from it.
Yeah, I think it's because the salaries are lower. But you are having to retrain in another area. You double skilling. You've got your industry experience, and then you're learning to be a teacher, and it's a very different thing. You double skilled, yet you get paid half. The maths don't work. You know what I mean? It's strange, and that's the education system, and that's what's happened, and that it's not going to change drastically probably for a long time. So we're kind of stuck with that. So yeah, you are relying on people really wanting to do that and really, have something kind of in there that says, yeah, I want to share what I know, I want to teach. And again, I kind of got into it by accident again, but what I did once I started doing it, I knew that I enjoyed it. I knew, and I got the bug that I wanted to do it. And I suppose the thing is, once you're in there, it's such a fast-paced environment. I mean, people probably from the outside don't realise FE, especially FE. I mean, universities are probably different, but colleges are crazy places. It's rapid. It's every day. There's something going on. The expectations are really high. They have to be very target driven because they're relying on making their own income now massively. Funding decreases, and they're competing. I mean, around here there's 5, 6, 7 colleges all competing against each other directly, and they've got to stand out to try and attract those learners and staff. There definitely needs to be more out there, more options for people coming out of industry, different ways to get them in. Yeah.
I mean, you alluded to there that when you started, you loved it, and I was the same. I remember starting at college and just being like, "Oh my god, this is like the best thing ever! This is the best thing I've ever done." Like, you're in this vibrant environment with young people. It's buzzing. There's all sorts going on. It's a lot more relaxed. You're treated more like an adult than you are in in industry. I think in industry, a lot of the times you are not treated like an adult at all. But I think in education, you quite you have the freedom to do things as you wish, to teach something in the way that you want to do it. And I loved it. I really did. Massively challenging, and I ended up leaving education for different reasons. But in terms of your first few years, so tell me through it. So you started doing the evening class, the evening welding class, which was adults who were kind of coming back one night a week for 3 hours to build the weld and fab skills. How did then you end up becoming a full-time teacher there? And you said you were young, you were 22, 23 when you did it. And what did those first couple of years look like for you? What were the challenges? How were you developed? What did you learn from it?
I think so. I did my training on evenings alongside teaching, so it was kind of like learn as you go. And what you learn on those teacher training programs, I mean, there's some good stuff in there, but it doesn't prepare you for the classroom well enough, in my opinion, or it didn't when I did it. Once I was qualified, I went for the full-time position, but the reality was it was so different to what I expected. I mean, I was teaching evening classes in a workshop environment. I had a technician with me if I needed something, some gas or some material, whatever. I could, I could just ask for it and it'd be there. But then suddenly you find yourself in a classroom, not a workshop, with double the amount of learners. And if you're teaching full-time students, especially who are straight out of school, some of them don't want to be there. They probably didn't mean to do engineering. They've ended up doing it, or the parents might have told them they wanted to do it. So you suddenly got a whole different world of challenges. It's quite daunting. I mean, I always loved teaching the apprentices because they just had a little bit more maturity. They were committed to an employer. But either way, the characters are what kept me doing it. I mean, some of these students are absolutely hilarious, and seeing them achieve, it really, it's like people say you hear it all the time, don't you? But it's fulfilling, and especially when you do manage to, it doesn't happen that often, but when you do manage to turn one around who's probably thinking of quitting, or it's not for them, or has motivational issues or that kind of thing, and then they go off and get a really good apprenticeship with an amazing company. That's like brilliant. You can't beat that. So that it kind of hooked me straight away, really. But it definitely wasn't what I expected. And as a lecturer, you're not just going to be teaching your skill area. You're going to be looking at a wider, and you're going to have to re-skill in other areas and retrain. So I went from teaching, like welding and fabrication, to suddenly I'm teaching welding, fabrication, business, projects. I've got an A-level class in design and development. You're picking up new skills like CAD and all that kind of stuff, and it's good. It's exciting, and it's brilliant seeing all the learners come and go. But it is quite an expectation for someone coming out of industry, definitely. And I think that's the main problem that colleges have with recruitment. And when I was interviewing people in my position in the college, I always made it really clear, like, this is what to expect. But you can't tell someone. You've got to show them. So I think getting people in there for just a day or so and just seeing what it's all about that really helps. But yeah, so then I was a lecturer, I don't know if people listening might not know, but there's kind of like scales in teaching. So there's lecturer A, B, and C. I started on a lecturer B point, and then you start picking up more duties. I mean, if you're passionate about it and you're doing well, and you're getting results, you'll soon progress in education. That's the way it goes. It's this constant movement. So suddenly I was a course leader, then I was a program leader, and then I'm starting to move into like HE classes and things like that, and then picking up curriculum manager position. And I ended up being head of division, which I never thought. 5 years, 6 years previous, I just didn't even contemplate that. I just thought that wouldn't happen. But you find yourself in these places, and you mature, you grow up, don't you? And you learn a lot of new skills, and you're in a tough professional environment. High expectations. You're doing all sorts of stuff, presentations. Dealing with awarding bodies, universities, employers, the industry, and you just start gathering skills. And yeah, so that's kind of what happened with me. But the problem is then is the higher you go, the less you do what you came to do. So you end up with less and less teaching each rung of the ladder, and then once you're managing a division, it's not really on your priority list is to be in a classroom, because there's so much else going on.
I think that, I mean, education is crazy. It really is. It's such a fast-paced kind of industry to be working within. But we used to say, didn't we? It was like being in like kind of EastEnders omnibus. It was just like crazy stuff happening all the time. But we used to have a good laugh, definitely. I suppose one thing to move on to then would be, there's a lot of work being done at the moment, or has been happening in the past couple of years, in terms of the local skills improvement plan, which is supposed to be pitched at getting the feedback from employers in terms of what they need from educational establishments in order to upskill or provide the training that they need to innovate and move forward. Some of the kind of the findings of that are that employers want X, Y, and Z things. There's always been talk of more modular training instead of full qualifications, being able to pick certain aspects of that out. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on those findings, on what employers want, and the realistic kind of is that going to be achievable? Can colleges actually do that?
I mean, I'm talking to employers all the time, and it varies from company to company. But I think the bigger employers out there, they've kind of identified that the things that are missing are not necessarily engineering skills, but leadership and management skills and communication skills. Some of the smaller businesses where they're struggling to retain staff because they're moving along up the chain, to the bigger companies, they need those operational skills. And then coming back to what we said before, they need them fast. They need them to come in knowing where what the role is and where they're going with it. But and in both cases, it's having the infrastructure in the company to train that person and get them to where they need to be. And every business is different. They have different pressures and they need different things out of people. But yeah, that's something I hear a lot. Leadership potential, I suppose. We're not expecting to come in and already be a manager, but having that potential to move into that area and run projects and things seems to be something that, especially in the larger businesses, that they're crying out for.
I think as well as there's when you have these specific needs from employers, like you said earlier about the kind of the vicious circle of it all, is when you're talking about up-to-date skills that need to be trained or need to be imparted on existing workforce. That is very, very difficult when you've got limited resources in a college, or you've got people that are stuck on full teaching hours that don't have the time to develop commercial courses. Do you think there could be a better joined up approach for industry and educational establishments to allow industry professionals to come in and help deliver on curriculum or help deliver skills to the wider kind of employers in the area?
Yeah, I mean, these things they are happening. It's probably just on too small of a scale to see the impact. I mean, exposing people to industry is if they want to be in industry, that's the key. That's what they get inspiration from, and motivation from the person that's showing them the ropes and training them, and then the employer gets exposed to potential people that they could bring on board. So it works both ways, but like you said, it's difficult for colleges because they colleges have got to have many strings to the bows. They're doing adult delivery, they're doing commercial delivery, they're doing 16 to 18, they're doing HE, and then doing things with schools, and it just keeps piling up. There's so many things that are happening in there, that getting things like this off the ground, and not just being a one-off, like an afternoon where an employer comes in and does a little skills show or masterclass. It needs to be constant. It needs to be routine, and it needs to be to the right people as well. I mean, it's all good people coming into 16 to 18-year-olds. I mean, how many people are currently, 19 plus in the 20s that are also itching to get into the industry, but they're not in colleges in the daytime. So getting into them, there's most colleges run a lot of evening courses and things like that. So I think getting people who need to recruit into those environments, that'd be brilliant. And again, it does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it needs to be consistent, and sharing it between the thing is everybody's recruiting. That's the gist of what you get at the moment. Everybody's recruiting. People are fighting for the same people. You've got people moving company for an extra 50p an hour, and it's all impacting all the way up the chain. If you got there's a giant aerospace business just down the road who are got one of the biggest apprenticeship recruitment campaigns that this country's probably ever seen going on. So how do the sub companies and the feeder companies compete with that and retain their people? It's difficult.
Well, but I think the irony is with that I work with a lot of people that are trying to get into those big companies and can't. And sometimes they can't get through the barriers that get put up. For me, there's too many barriers. It's like we're almost trying to think of ways that we can trip people up. We can stop people from being able to have a conversation. For me, there isn't enough conversations that go on. I think if you've got a good person and you can identify they're a good person, speak to them. Why are we putting people through tests and CVs and about now we're talking about bringing AI systems in to be able to scan CVs for keywords. That's for me, that's making it worse. Yeah. What you need is an opportunity for people to prove why they deserve a chance. Because I think as soon as you start speaking to people and giving people a chance to show why they should be considered, then you can create a talent pool that is currently going unnoticed.
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity there now, though, with with all the investment, I mean, there's more investment now in engineering in colleges than there probably ever been as well. So that you know you've got T-level funding, like carbon net zero initiatives. There's IoTs are springing up everywhere. They're all over the country now, and they've got kit now in colleges that is just unbelievable. You know, and that's to me that's the in. That's right. We've got this amazing kit. We need people from industry to come in and show us how it's utilised in industry. But again, it's difficult to get that commitment because everyone is so stretched and busy. So it just keeps going round and round. But there's some amazing people. I mean, since I've started doing the role I'm doing now, I'm an industry manager for an awarding organisation. So my role is to try and get people from industry to validate qualifications and things like that for us, and like kind of manage the portfolio of engineering across the country. So I'm seeing people from industry that are just itching to get involved in these things, and where possible, obviously, I'd tee them up and say, these guys have got this kit, and they're looking for it, but it's only a portion of the time that they can give. They can't be in that college day in, day out, doing that role. And the colleges struggle to get the right people with the skill set in there because of the pay and various other reasons. But yeah, I think all that investment right now is an opportunity for more exposure for people. And all that kit, it needs using, doesn't it? Adult programs, the skills boot camps, things like that are brilliant. I've seen a few recently where like doing a 3D print course, and after the 6-8 weeks, whatever it is, you're taking a 3D printer home with you. I mean, that's a brilliant idea. If you get things like that to get more people interested. But yeah, it requires the right people involved and money, which is hard to come by as well in colleges. So, but yeah, it's just bringing industry and education together. I think everyone knows what needs to happen. It's just a difficult thing to actually put together.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it is very difficult. I think that it's an awareness thing. It is bringing it all together, and it almost feels like an impossible task, really. I think, like you said, you've got pockets of really good things going on. Like, for instance, the skills boot camps. What a brilliant concept they are. But do employers understand them? Do employers value the skills that someone has been on that program? I'm not sure. I think that you would really need to educate them on, look, this person has dedicated 12 weeks of their time to this. This is what they've done, and this is how you can use them. This is how we can onboard them into your organisation, which I'm sure the boot camps are doing in small pockets, but it's the wider employers out there that are unaware of all these things that are going on, possibly.
I think the T levels are an answer to some of these issues. But again, it requires everyone to be on board. The T level puts that young person in that work environment for 45 days. They're not committed to an apprenticeship. There's no pay involved, but it's exposing that person, and it's showing the company that there's that pool of people there that could be recruited from as well. And these are ideal. These are ideal people to move on to your degree apprenticeships. They're coming through a program where they're learning practical skills. They're sitting exams. They are learning that analytical side of things as well. And they've had that time in company. But colleges are struggling to get those work placements. So until industry catches up with the idea and starts giving that opportunity, and I know it's tricky because in some cases they just can't do it. But yeah, that if the T level was working across all sectors the way it's designed, yeah, that would have a massive impact.
Yeah, and I think you're right there with the idea of the T level is right. As soon as I heard about T levels, I just thought 45-day work placement, that's where it's going to fall down. And I think that's where it is falling down, unfortunately. How do we get employers to buy into that? How do we get them to give that time to take that young person in for 45 days? Because that's quite a commitment.
It is. It is. It's big, and I think it's. It sounds a bit brutal, but I think it needs to be mandatory for employers. You know, it has to be. I think there needs to be some if this is the way we're going, and we're going to stick with that. I know is now the advanced British standard being put together, but that will have the T level sat within it. You know, it's taking on the same principles. But unless there's some kind of legislation change or something where, you know, employers have to do this and like paying into the levy, they have to take 8 placements on per year if they're a company with over 500 members, so whatever it is. Because, you know, there's huge employers out there with thousands, you know, global companies that are only taking maybe one T-level learner on in a year or none. And yeah, others are doing you know, doing their bit and taking on more. But again, you've got to sympathise with the employer as well. They might not be in that position where they can free that member of staff up to give the experience that they want to give to that young person. Because you don't want to be sweeping up the 45 days, do you?
No, absolutely not. It needs to be meaningful.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So then, finally, you touched there about the work that you're doing at kind of at City and Guilds at the moment, and you have a need for people from industry to engage with what you're developing, which can be a really nice way to kind of give a little bit back. Do you just want to talk a little bit about the work that you're doing and the opportunities that you've currently got for engineers?
Yeah, I mean, so as an awarding organisation, we need to align our qualifications with the apprenticeship standards. So we need to prove that we are giving the right opportunity to the person studying that qualification, that it's going to give them the skill set to get into a career and into that industry. So the people that say that that's happening have to be people from industry. So I'm looking for people from all areas of the sector to, you know, give a bit of time and, you know, look at validation and look at consulting. So we have we have a lot of different positions. If someone went on the City Girls website now, you'd see at the moment we're looking for moderators. So with the T level and all the different pathways within it, the occupational specialisms that we're running, we need skill specific people for those areas. So, you know, it's not just mechanical, electrical engineering anymore. It's electric vehicles, it's composites, it's welding and fabrication. It's quite specific, we need multiple employers in each of these areas to look at the assessments, to look at the specifications, to look at the content, and give it that nod of approval. Is it right for industry, and is it giving that person the chance to go and flourish in a career in engineering? So yeah, if anybody's listening and they are interested, you know, and they are working in industry at the moment, then please, I don't know if you'll be able to share my details when this goes out, and that's probably the easiest way. Then please let me know. I'm on LinkedIn. What I'm trying to do is build a really good pool. You know, I don't want to be leaning on people and asking them to give up the time too often. It's not a massive commitment. You know, it can go from anything from just a few hours to, you know, to weeks if that's what you want. But if you imagine every part of what we do needs to be validated, so we're not just writing exams, we're writing whole qualifications. and the qualifications need to be renewed each year. So you know these are national exams now with the engineering T level. It's so that content needs to be revised and again. Holiday periods, things like that, then there's options for that as well. So if you do want to get involved, there's all sorts you can do. Yeah, there really is.
Right, so they're better off heading towards the City and Guilds website to look at that, or searching for you up on LinkedIn
Yeah,
to
by
discuss
all
more.
means, pop me a message on LinkedIn. I can meet with you and go through it. But as a business, as an employer, if you want to be involved, there is a expression of interest form on the website. We also run a industry board, so we run that 4 times a year. It's just an hour and a half, but employers can log in. It's sometimes face to face, but it's always streamed on a webinar, so they can log in whenever they've got the chance and just find out what's happening in the education world. Really, I suppose what policy changes, what IFAT are doing, what we can do with that, and how we move things along. And again, hearing from other employers, how are they recruit? You know, how are they handling the recruitment issues? How are they getting the right young people in, and influencing the curriculum and making sure it's fit for purpose as well.
Yeah, super. Well, Chris, thank you for your time today. Really enjoyed that. Nice to go a little bit down memory lane as well.
Yeah,
Back to the good old days. But yeah,
thanks.
thanks for your time there, Chris. Really enjoyed that.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me.